Alright, welcome to another episode of my wrestling life. I haven't done one of these for a while. The last one I did was Macho Man, I believe it was. Yep. So, today's topic, well, I'll let the music do the talking.
I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American, fight for what's right, fight for your life. It comes crashing down and it hurts inside. Take a stand, you don't have to hide. If you hurt my friends, then you hurt my pride. I gotta be a man, I can't let it slide.
You know what? I know a lot of people are either big fans of Hogan and some people detract Hogan, you know, how he's not a wrestler. You know what? Hulk Hogan brought wrestling to the next level back in the 80s. I remember, I think I told this on the first episode of my wrestling life, how I got into Saturday morning TV. And I used to watch like AWA wrestling, and I used to watch all the different regions of like NWA back then. And when I first saw WWE, one of the first guys I saw was what's his name? Chief J Strongbow, and I used to love Chief J. But then I was watching an episode, and they showed the replay of when Hulk Hogan beat Iron Sheik for the title, and I was just instantly attracted. I mean, Hogan was like larger than life, and you know, people who've seen Rocky 3, he showed that flair that he had, and no offense, that is not a pun towards Ric Flair, but man, like, when I saw Rocky 3 for the first time, and Thunderlips, the Ultimate Male, came down, I mean, he stole that whole scene from Stallone. And anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge Stallone fan. But man, like, that scene when Hogan's coming down and they're like, why are they carrying him? He's walking. I mean, he was just like the quintessential look of a wrestler, and what a wrestler was supposed to be back then, like hulking, and I think that's how he got the name Hulk. Cause I mean, he just had the muscle physique and the wherefore all. He was, like I said, he was larger than life, and he basically carried the WWF at that time, back before they had to get the F out. And I mean, every WrestleMania featured Hogan. You had Hogan and Mr. T versus Piper and Orndorff, which anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge Piper fan too. So like, that was WrestleMania 1, and then Bundy in Part 2 in the steel cage. Andre, I mean, those who grew up in the 70s and early 80s, Andre the Giant was the larger-than-life guy. And that was like the passing of the torch, because Hogan was like the man right then. Like, I mean, there's nothing that could slow down Hogan. I mean, he's the reason they sold out a lot of arenas. And you could argue that there was guys like Macho Man, Ted DiBiase, Ricky Steamboat, Tito Santana, but these guys weren't going to sell out arenas without Hulk Hogan. And the music, every time that music hit, I'm a Real American, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. I mean, and he had he had all the catchphrases. I mean, before The Rock was The Rock, Hogan had the catchphrases. You know, brother, and he had all. He had it all. Then we fast forward to WrestleMania 4 when him and Macho Man got eliminated. Him and Andre got eliminated, and Macho won the tournament. I think the WWE at that time was trying to pass the torch to Macho Man, and they did that a few times during Hogan's career. They were trying to find another guy besides Hogan that could carry wrestling, and they just could not keep finding that guy. They tried Macho Man. Then a couple years later, after Hogan beat Macho for the title in 5, they tried the Ultimate Warrior, and as much of a fan I was of the Ultimate Warrior, rest in peace, by the way, Warrior. There's another guy who just ironically his ego was bigger than Hogan, and it's just so he didn't carry it very long. Then Hogan had to beat Sergeant Slaughter in 7. Wrestled Sid Vicious in 8. Got the title back in Yokozuna for the last time, and at that after he beat Yoko, that's when he kind of let them know, hey, I'm moving on. And the WWF slipped at that time. I mean, they were still winning what would be known as the Monday Night Wars, but when World Championship Wrestling got their stick together in 1996, they formed the New World Order. WWF didn't have anybody at the time to counteract that. They won that war for so many weeks in a row until a guy named Steve Austin came around. When finally they got a guy that could, that Attitude Era with Steve Austin, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. That whole Attitude Era finally got WWF back on top again. And when WCW finally folded up Hogan, Hogan had a great run as a heel. I didn't even talk about that. When he became Hollywood Hogan, he did the unthinkable. No one ever saw that coming. I don't care if there was some points in his WCW career when he was dressing in the black that he had an idea. It was 1995 when him and Lex Luger were going to battle before the NWO. You had an idea that they were trying something different with Hogan, but you never in a million years thought they were going to turn him complete heel. And when he turned on Macho in 96 at Bash at the Beach and became the 3rd member of the New World Order, talk about that was the ratings breaker right there. When Hogan turned, is what cashed in WCW. WWF tried to counter with Degeneration X, and for a while, they were going to battle for a while, who was the bigger faction, but people were still enthralled with the fact that Hogan was a bad guy. They would tune in every week just to see what he would do next. And the infamous finger poke of death against Kevin Nash, when Kevin Nash tried to form a second NWO called the Wolfpack, and that was going over well for a while until one day it was Hogan versus Nash, and Hogan did that little poop, and Nash went down like he got hit by a truck. And once again, the Hogan storyline really pays off. I'm gonna say this right now, guys. As much as Hogan cannot wrestle for a lick, the man knew how to draw a crowd. He still draws a crowd today. And I haven't even talked about when he returns to WWF. He returns to WWF when it was becoming WWE because of the whole Wildlife Federation, saying that they have the market for WWF, which I don't know why they took forever to claim it, but and maybe they're making money off the WWF, and they just didn't care. I don't know. But anyways, when Hogan makes a return with the NWO, that match against The Rock in WrestleMania, I have never heard a more one-sided crowd for a guy who was playing a heel against a guy who was playing a face. Rock went into the match as the face, the good guy. And when Hogan came down, every time Hogan did moves, the crowd, I don't know, it may be because Hogan was back at WrestleMania again and people were just nostalgic, but that was the most one-sided heel crowd I've ever seen in my life. And, you know, it wasn't even scripted to go down like that. It was, they did it in mid-script where they, you know, told Hogan, you know, they must have told him, like, well, eventually we're going to turn you good guys, so Hulk up. And he did the Hulk up, because he hadn't done the Hulk up much in WCW when he was Hollywood Hogan. When he hulked up, the crowd just went absolutely wild. And even though he lost, he made that smooth transition from bad guy to good guy with the handshake of The Rock. And then, of course, the NWO turned on Hogan, and here comes The Rock to help him. And, you know, so that next night on Raw, I believe this was 2002, that next night on Raw was the loudest crowd I've ever heard for someone who wasn't going to wrestle. I mean, you can look it up on YouTube, guys, and they would not let Hogan talk. That they had, it had to be about a 10-minute like Hogan chant, and just keep getting louder and louder. It was surreal, even to Hogan. Like, Hogan didn't expect that at all. You could see that this wasn't scripted. He generally looked like he was gonna cry, and you know, that's how they were able to keep The Rock a good guy, because at the end of that match, you know, they shook hands and, yeah, all is forgiven, and they were able to keep The Rock a good guy, and it was one of the greatest moments in wrestling, honestly. A lot of people say, you know, what's the most emotional moment in wrestling? That had to be up there in everyone's top 10. The return of the good guy, Hulk Hogan. And yeah, so then he started wrestling, won the title again from Triple H, lost it to The Undertaker. Back then, Undertaker was doing that Dead Man Inc., and he was really vicious, and so he showed no mercy on Hogan and beat Hogan for the title. You know, then Hulk Hogan came back as Captain America for a while, and that was a funny skit with Mr. McMahon trying to, like, do a lie detector test because he already fired Hogan, and Hogan came back as Captain America, and that was a whole funny skit. But at that time, Hulk Hogan was finally just having fun with wrestling, because he knew that he was just there for the ticket sales now. He wasn't there to win titles. He wasn't. I believe him and Edge did win the tag team titles, though. So, oddly enough, that was a weird tag team, but, you know, they helped Edge's career too. So, being in that, tag team, but, you know, finally when Hulk Hogan called it quits, you know, there's still a void missing. Even though Hulk, he probably can't wrestle ever again. I mean, A, he's in his 60s, and B, you know, with so many surgeries, you know, I don't think he can even pull off the leg drop anymore. But, you know, he's made appearances here and there, coming back to save Eugene at one time. He's still a draw, and even when he shows up just like when he showed up at WrestleMania with Ric Flair and Stone Cold, and he still gets a pop, and that's a sign of greatness. That after, let's see, he started wrestling in the 70s, so over 40 something years of wrestling, and he can still grab a pop when he comes out, just like Ric Flair can. And that's something that today's wrestlers, I don't think 40 years from now, I mean, you might have The Rock and Stone Cold maybe, that could still probably get pops years later. I mean, Stone Cold still gets pops. And The Rock's gonna be The Rock, you know. So, but I don't think there'll ever be another Hulk Hogan, ever again. Like I said, there's people who love him, then there's those who do not like him, but man, you gotta respect what he did for wrestling, because he brought wrestling to the forefront. You know, that whole rock and wrestling era with they started having music intros, and like when I played here, Real American, they didn't do a lot of wrestling music intros in the early 80s. Between that one, Hulk Hogan used to come down to Eye of the Tiger before that too. When WrestleMania 1, I believe he came down to Eye of the Tiger, because it was him and Mr. T, you know, both who were in Rocky 3, so it was kind of suitable that he came down to Eye of the Tiger. But there wasn't a lot of wrestlers in that first WrestleMania that had intro music. So I'd like to think that Hogan helped that part of the industry too, the music intro. So, well, this has been my ramblings about the Immortal One, Hulk Hogan. I hope you enjoyed my posing earlier. Yeah, there's nothing there. Well, there's a little something there. Yeah, remember that. Remember just to keep training, keep saying your prayers, and keep eating your vitamins. Much love. What you gonna do when the largest arms in the world run wild on you?